Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Smash the like button if you love me. Subscribe if you're new. Please have your say, and a very warm welcome to Wednesday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. On today's show, we asked the question, can we trust WB with DC? I think we all know the answer to that question. And then we focus on Tyler Hoechlin's Superman from Superman and Lois and from Supergirl, and ask, is he a good Superman? Is he a great Superman? Will he be remembered as a great Superman? We'll have a little bit of a focus with him slightly later on. So let's go with today's show. Yes, I want to ask the question, can we trust WB with DC? Can we trust Warner Brothers Discovery with DC? NO spells no. But why, Mick? Why can't we trust them? They've got James Gunn, they've got Peter Safran, the bestest ever. Well, listen, it's all about, your past misdemeanors and your past crimes. We thought new ownership and new leadership would be a new broom sweeping clean. It's not that. We have seen some very fundamentally dodgy behaviour from David Zaslav, And, it was the whole Henry Cavill thing. It was the whole he's back, then he's not. They lied to us to uplift Black Adam. So we know we can't trust them. So we can't trust them with DC. We can't trust them to make DC consistently good. Now, in terms of Joker and the Batman, WB don't need to be trusted with them because they have no control over those properties, because Matt Reeves and Todd Phillips are controlling those properties because WB trust them enough to actually make their movies and their visions. So those corners of DC are not a problem. And fundamentally, they're in good hands. Unfortunately, the DC Universe, led by James Gunn and Peter Safran and DC Studios, is fundamentally being micromanaged by David Zaslav. And I simply don't trust David Zaslav. I'm not saying every decision he's made since he's taken over the studio is bad, but fundamentally he's made some very, very dodgy decisions. Why was Cavill brought back and then allowed to be, removed as Superman? Those questions really haven't been answered. Was Batgirl rightfully shelved? Was it such a bad movie? Was it worse than Shazam! Fury of the Gods? Was it worse than Blue Beetle? Why did Blue Beetle get a pass and Batgirl didn't? We'll never know. My fundamental view of this, an informed view of this, and my opinion away from that as well, is they were desperate for a tax write-off and they had to choose a movie. So they looked at The Flash, potentially could make a lot of money. They looked at Shazam! Fury of the Gods, made for cinema. Let's at least get our money back. They'll at least get their money back. They won't make a profit on that movie. They'll get their budgets back, right? And that's what they care about, that movie. Same with Blue Beetle. That movie may not make a profit. Same with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. But they'll get their money back. They can't just dump these movies because they at least need to get their, they need to get their dispensation for the money they spent on those movies. Now, in terms of Batgirl, they felt, well, we can't move that film to movie theatres because they felt it wasn't good enough and they didn't want to keep it on HBO Max. They didn't see any profitability of that movie being on HBO Max. It's all very, very strange because clearly they didn't even want to spend money on marketing that movie. So it's still a very crooked decision. Now, personally, I didn't lose any sleep on Batgirl being shelved. And I told you there was something suspicious going on with Batgirl months before, and I was right. It's a bit like when I kept on coming in last year and talking about the 4 postponed movies that are being released this year. 2 of them already have been released in Black Adam and Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I said there was a deeper, darker reason, a nefarious reason for those movies being put back. And some people admitted to me at the time they unsubscribed from my platform because they felt I was being too negative. No, you couldn't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth, basically. And then they came back to me again a few months later and started watching my platform. The problem is there's some fans who are blind to the nefarious and suspicious nature of modern day entertainment. And just like I said yesterday, how I feel bad for the Blue Beetle fans because they're expecting comic book Blue Beetle and they're simply not going to get him. Because this is not the industry from 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. This is not the industry that produced the Bond movies or the original Indiana Jones movies or the original Star Wars movies. This is a very different industry. We heard yesterday that Amazon have to pay a premium to anyone like Ben Affleck and Matt Damon just to get them on board, like we're talking about the film Air. That now they actually ignore the rating systems and what their customers actually want. That's why they greenlit season 2 of Rings of Power. That is the industry we're in now. They're more concerned about representation, inclusion, and wokeness and demographics rather than customers, right? They hate the customers that will actually make them money. And it's not just Amazon. This is what's going on in the industry as a whole. So sadly, when we hear this whole thing, oh my God, James Gunn, Gods and Monsters, a Superman movie, wow, it's exciting. Ultimately, the whole thing will turn to shit because you can't trust them. Because maybe if James Gunn was allowed to do whatever he wants and he wasn't under the control of Zaslav and Peter Safran, maybe he could do better. I don't know. Basically, all DC Universe is basically going forward with the Walter Hamada plan with a different creative. That's it. We may not be getting a Batgirl. We may not be going forward with Michael Keaton's Batman being the main Batman of the DCU. But fundamentally, it's the same plan. Hamada planned on binning Henry Cavill. Basically, they're just going forward basically with the same plan. And this is why I don't trust WB in terms of DC. But I can trust Todd Phillips. I can trust Matt Reeves. So I know they're going to deliver something brilliant because they're in control of those IPs. And that's great. That's why I come on here every day and say to you, I'm looking forward to that, but I'm not looking forward to that. Because it's all about trust. I simply don't trust the majority of people running entertainment or making entertainment these days, because making good entertainment is the last thing on their minds. Entertainment is dead. Gaming is dead. Comic books are dead. Why are all these platforms dead? Because basically there's been a removal of people who want to give you what you've always had, something beautiful, entertaining, and it's been basically handed to a group of people who are political extremists. And all they care about is their fundamental worldviews being moved forward in these platforms. And when you look at some of the shit the Blue Beetle director has been saying, one of those things, a deleted tweet where he said he would like Donald Trump to have the same conclusion as Abraham Lincoln. If you know your history, you know what he's trying to say there. Now, I'm no Donald Trump supporter, but that, everyone, is absolutely disgusting, and so we know what this man's agenda is. And the critics and Access Media are just as bad today. Look at what they're doing with the reviews for Mario. Mario is a fun, brilliant movie. It's worth the ticket price alone. It's a brilliant movie, and they're saying, oh, I expected more depth. No, you didn't. Basically, you have a political agenda against the people who own Nintendo. That's what it's all about. Because these people know exactly how to review a movie to give it a rotten or a fresh score. These are the exact tactics they took with the Joker movie from 2019. They did the same thing back then. They got their fingers on the chicken switch, right? They'll give Rings of Power and Captain Marvel, brilliant reviews, when that movie and that TV streaming show are basically at least mid, right? But because it forwards that extremist agenda, they're quite happy to give it 5 stars. But because Nintendo is owned by who it's owned by, this is what it's all about, everyone. But they can't stop Mario from making money and having a great launch. But the agenda is to try and stop Mario being successful so it doesn't get this huge, big franchise. They don't want Nintendo to dominate the motion picture circuit. So there is an agenda here, and these people, make no mistake, are being paid to give shitty reviews. It's politics, everyone. This is where we are today. But getting back to DC Universe, I don't see us getting something good. And it's a shame, and as I say, I feel sorry. It's the fans I feel sorry for that swallow this crap. It's the fans who think I'm talking utter shit every day when I'm saying like this. You know, when people say to me, oh Mick, stop complaining for the sake of it. I never complain for the sake of it. You know, when I make a prediction, when I go on a tangent, how many times have I been wrong? How many times have you come back and said, actually Mick, I disagreed with you, but you were right? Think about it. Sit down for 5 minutes, have a cold drink, have a cup of coffee, whatever your poison is, right? Think about my record. It doesn't matter that I only get 5 views a video or whatever, right? That I've only got whatever I've got in subscribers, that I'm not a successful, content creator. That doesn't matter. Do I give you legitimate, information? Do all my predictions and theories come true? So it's clear I must have some connections, right? That my connections are actually true. And my background in the entertainment industry is true for me to be giving you so many accurate takes. It means I understand this game. I understand this industry. And I'm fundamentally telling you that we can't trust Warner Brothers Discovery with this new interconnected franchise because they're just going ahead with the Justice League plan, with the Walter Hamada plan. That's all they're doing. This is not about fighting for the Snyderverse. This is not about me being biased towards Zack Snyder. Put that to one side. Because even if these people fail, Snyder won't take over WB or DC or anything like that. But the point is, we can't trust these people. Don't you think, as a DC fan, I wish I could trust these people to deliver something great? I don't believe we're going to deliver something great here. I don't trust these people. And I was in denial about Zaslav trying to sell to Universal next year. I was saying, no way, I don't want that. But I have to at least be honest about my views on that and say, I believe he will try and sell Warner Brothers Discovery. That this whole DC Universe and DC Studios thing is a facade to try and put the price up. We'll see if we get a Superman casting by the end of this year. If we don't get a Superman casting for Superman Legacy by the end of this year, you know I'm right. That all this thing is an empty bag of oxygen and it's all a facade to get the bidders to bid higher when they sell this company. It was always very suspicious why a company like Discovery would want to take over Warner Brothers. Now, Stanky went to Zaslav to do this deal out of desperation because AT&T mismanaged the studio and couldn't control people like Emmerich and Hamada, and they got themselves in trouble. And their launch of HBO Max was nothing less than a fucking disaster. They weren't ready. They didn't have a Mandalorian to launch or anything like that. It's been a failure. It's a good platform, but it's a failure. It's as simple as that. It's a bit like how DC Universe, that platform, that streaming platform for comics and DC content was a failure as well. Streaming is dead. They're all failing with streaming now. This industry is in a lot of trouble. And fundamentally, you don't know how desperate these people are. And you can always tell in the levels of desperation in business when people say certain things. Oh, it's not like Superman Legacy is going to be anything like Guardians of the Galaxy. It's interesting. It's interesting that Gunn even came out and said that. And as I said yesterday, I think that's an act of desperation. As I said, I know people don't like me talking this way. I'm just throwing truths at you. I'm just giving you facts. If you can't handle those facts, if you can't accept those facts, that you can't trust Warner Brothers Discovery, that you can't trust David Zaslav, because we couldn't trust him with the Henry Cavill situation. He brought him back. And then all of a sudden, he's not Superman. How can one person be Superman? Right, we're bringing him back. All the fanfare. Buy Man of Steel now. You know, it's great. Celebrations, Cavill's doing interviews. And then a few months later, he's not Superman. How do we go from, you know, Abby and DeLuca running DC to James Gunn and Saffron running DC? What happened there? Was Zaslav forced into it? Was the old Emmerich regime found a way to force Zaslav into that decision? I don't know. I really don't know. And we have to evaluate these things, and we have to use our brains, because if we don't use our brains, if we just bury our heads in the sand, we have a huge problem. And I think there's a big issue here. I think Emmerich is still running WB, and I think Hamada has a big hand in DC, and I think he's hiding. And so these are the reasons I don't trust this studio. I couldn't trust this studio as far as I could throw it with DC. We're now hearing that they want to reboot Harry Potter as a streaming show. They want to take each book and make it into a season. Do you trust HBO Max and WB with Harry Potter? Do you trust them to recast these roles? We know what's going to happen. Black Harry Potter, Asian Hermione, blah, blah, blah. We know what they're planning to do, right? A female Snape. You know what they're going to do. You know, so you cannot trust these people. You can't trust them to cast a white Clark Kent. You can't. And if you fundamentally can't trust a group of people with something, if that's your gut feeling, as it is mine, then there's a good reason for it. But the good thing is, maybe they'll prove us wrong. I don't think they will prove us wrong. I think they're going to mess up DC Universe. I think they're going to sell Warner Brothers Discovery. They may not even get started on DC Universe. Right now, we don't have any castings whatsoever. We don't know what's going to happen. As I say, let's see if there's even going to be an announcement for a casting for Superman in Superman Legacy by the end of this year. My hunch, my gut feeling is that it won't be. And they will sell Warner Brothers Discovery. And that, my friends, will be a very, very sad day. Because once Universal own that company, they will swallow it up whole and it will vanish. Just like 20th Century Fox has become 20th Century Studios and it's vanished. 20th Century Fox was a great studio for TV and film in its own right for so many years. And now it's gone. It's been swallowed up. This industry is changing. And it's changing for the worse. It's not changing in the best interests of the art form, of the consumer, of the geeks and the nerds. And that's very, very sad. But the saddest thing is that a lot of fans can't see that. You know, they actually believe they're going to get a great Deadpool movie or they're going to get a great Indiana Jones 5 movie. They can't see through the bullshit. They can't see through the marketing, and that's the problem. Just like The Flash being called the best film since The Dark Knight. Do you believe them? I'm not saying it's not going to be a good movie. I'm telling you that there's no way that this film is going to be on the level of The Dark Knight. You can't trust these people. Tom Cruise saw the Flash movie and loved it. That's what they told us. Desperation, everyone. Panic. When you hear things like this, you've got to see through it. You've got to understand it, but so many stands don't. So many stands don't understand what's going on here, that there's a panic mode here, and they don't know what to do. Because of their own creative bankruptcy, they keep on digging more and more holes for themselves. So do I trust Warner Brothers Discovery? No shit, Sherlock. I don't trust Warner Brothers Discovery or David Zaslav. with DC, and I'm telling you, neither should you, because if you do trust them, your heart's going to be broken eventually. Let's talk about Tyler Hoechlin's Superman from Superman and Lois and Supergirl. So he was first introduced in a Supergirl episode, right? And I thought he was amazing. Now, clearly, he's a little bit shorter than Superman should be, but his acting style and the way he plays Superman makes you forget about the height issue. I think Tyler Hoechlin is an amazing Clark Kent and an even more amazing Superman. And in that first Supergirl episode, he had a lot of charm. And I was very encouraged in his introduction into Supergirl. Now, at that time, I was loving Arrowverse. I was a big Arrowverse stan. I used to review the episodes. I used to love the episodes. And in the end, I left it because it became like everything else today. We've just been talking about it. Can we trust WB with DC? No. And what happened to Arrowverse was such a sin, because it started off in the first 5 years as such a good medium for DC. And there were some really good achievements with that franchise, and they will never be forgotten. Now, as Tyler Hoechlin became more and more represented in Arrowverse, they started shoving him in the crossovers, but they were taking liberties with him, like Cisco Ramon saying, Kara, my favourite Kryptonian. Wink, wink, you get it, right? Because of their extremism. So basically, they ordered a Superman and Lois TV show, and they put Todd Helbing in charge as showrunner. He ran The Flash for the first 2 seasons. Yes, that's when it was at its best, right? Todd decided that his Superman show would have nothing to do with Arrowverse, to great divisive opinion and reactions from Arrowverse stands. I believe that was a fundamental choice. It was fundamentally a right choice, and it has worked. The decision to carry on with Tyler and Bitsy as those characters in the spin-off was very, very interesting. This is another Earth, I suppose, which is part of Arrowverse, but it's not from the main Arrowverse timeline. Because we've seen Diggle, aka David Ramsey. He's turned up. So, yeah, it's a very multiversal show, but I think it's such a brilliant, relatable show. And there's a lot of reality to it. I love the fact that there's, they're in Smallville, that, they're raising these 2 sons, and one of them is the iconic comic book John Kent as well, that ironically doesn't have powers. And the new fictional created for the show character, Jordan, is actually the one with powers. That was a big surprise to me and many comic book fans and many fans of John Kent from the comics. This has become a very well-written, well-delivered Superman take. Now, is Tyler Hoechlin a great Superman? Yes, I think he will be remembered as a great Superman. Now, a lot of Snyderverse stans, as they do, have started or tried to compare him to Henry Cavill and say this and that, but their criticisms of Superman and Lois and Tyler Hoechlin have no legitimacy around them. Let's say that. He's a great Superman. Superman and Lois is a great show. Now, according to James Gunn, they're looking to take this on for another 2 or 3 seasons. I don't know how true that is, because Tyler Hoechlin's been talking and saying, whatever happens to this show, I'm excited for the future of this character. I'm proud to have interacted with all the Superman fans. I'm proud of playing this character. It sounds like maybe this could be the last season. I hope that's not true. I hope it does go on for a couple of years, and I hope that James Gunn is being honest about that. But it's a network television show. You have to examine the numbers and everything before you give it another season. So we'll see. I don't think Gotham Knights will get another season. Nothing else is getting another season. DC is moving away from CW. So we will wait and see to see if that show continues. But in terms of the legitimacy of Tyler Hoechlin as a great Superman, for me, it's all there. This guy can really, really act. And I think he's brought such nuances to Clark and Superman. Now, I wish he was wearing a better costume. Now, don't get me wrong. The design of the costume, the look of the costume looks great, but unfortunately it does look like something he just puts on like a jumper. And that's disappointing because they do have the budget to do something a bit better, but the look of the costume I really, really like. The special effects are motion picture like. And when you think about what James Gunn's planning, because Tyler is the most recent Superman, I think it may be difficult for James Gunn to introduce someone else and convince them that this is the new one, that this is a great Superman, because I think Tyler has come in at a time where everyone's been, screaming and shouting for more Cavill Superman. And what's great about his Superman and his Superman TV show, there's no controversy around it. For the first time, Superman fans are actually agreeing that Tyler is a great version of the Man of Steel, and Superman and Lois is actually a great interpretation of the Superman legend and myth. Now, we know there's so many differing opinions about Superman Returns, Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, but Superman and Lois hasn't had that divisive conversation and that controversy around it. So I think Tyler will be remembered as a really, really great Superman. And I celebrate that as a huge Superman fan, as you know I am. And I hope he goes on and on and on. I mean, it would have been great if he could have been James Gunn's Superman, but it's not going to happen. But who knows? Who knows? But it is a very popular show. He is a very popular version of the character. Excuse me. I'm about to choke, but don't worry about me. But when you've got such a great version, you want to keep him around as long as possible. And if you cut him short, what have you got? You've got no Superman until Superman Legacy. Maybe that would be a good idea to give the character a rest. But that's if we actually get James Gunn's version of Superman Legacy. Now, if you believe it's happening, if you believe DC Universe is a real thing, then you're going to say, well, Mick, there's no point in continuing Superman and Lois. Give Superman a break until James does his thing. But I think there's no reason why we shouldn't have a couple of more seasons of Superman and Lois. Because I think it's a great show. As I say, it's a great interpretation of that Superman universe. They're doing a lot of great things with that show. So why not keep it going? Why cut it short? We're on season 3 right now. The fans are loving the season 3 so far. It's only about 3 episodes in or whatever it is. So it's only just started, to be honest, but people are enjoying it. They're dealing with the social issue of breast cancer as well. So that's a very interesting thing for a superhero show to do as well. Superman and Lois has a niche audience. Superman and Lois is popular. Not the most popular thing ever, not the most popular version of Superman ever, but it works for a selective audience. So why not keep it going? I do think that Tyler will be remembered fondly. I think he is a great guy. He ain't a controversial guy. He's everything a Superman actor should be. Now, it didn't start off that way. He was a little bit controversial at the beginning because he was wearing the Superman costume and he did a picture where he was giving the finger. That didn't go down well with a lot of fans, but he got past that controversy. It wasn't a big deal for me. He was clearly kidding. He wasn't attempting to be disrespectful. How many of us have taken a picture with our middle finger sticking up before, right? But we're just, nobody's interested in us because we're not playing Superman. But he got past that. His performances have been brilliant. I mean, I think that Superman and Lois's pilot is one of the best pilots I've ever seen. I fundamentally believe that. It's so emotional. When you're watching that as a Superman fan, it makes your heart, it opens your heart. It actually is heartbreaking. It makes me cry. That opening segment when he explains about coming from Krypton and meeting Lois is really, really emotional. The music, the setup, I think it's a really, really good show and it deserves being celebrated. And I think not enough people are talking about this achievement. Everyone's happy to talk about controversy. and stuff that they don't like. But when something good comes along, like Tyler Hoechlin as Superman and Superman and Lois, there's not much conversation around it. And that's a shame. This has been Wednesday's edition of the DC Universe Daily with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wife. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss its beautiful perfection. Smash the like button if you love me. Subscribe if you're new. Please have your say. Until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.